A golden civilization is a lofty idea. George takes his approach to life financial planning and applies it to civilization to envision evolutionary change at a global scale. So that's a great segue, I think, into talking about a golden civilization. And when you think about those great risks and not really being able to live the life you want to live, and you took this life planning method and you applied it to a broader, bigger concept. And it happened just after the great financial crisis. Would you say something about your reaction to that and how you came to write this book, A Golden Civilization and a Map of Mindfulness?
Yeah, it's funny that it started then, because in a lot of ways we think about the great tumult that has happened in our society as being even more recent than that, with the political
Yeah.
polarization that has occurred. But in fact, for me, it started with the banking crisis and feeling an outrage, really, that it had happened and that so many people had suffered from it. And it made me think, for years, Ross, and I have, as you well know, I've been an artist all along. I've been a poet and I was a painter in the early days, a photographer. And um, uh, I've always said, well, that's where I'm headed. That's where I'm headed. Well, and I thought that was where I was just going to be retiring, and so the banking crisis comes along and I get really ticked off. I'm really upset. How could this happen in this country, in this world? How could things fall apart that much? And I thought, I've failed.
Mm.
My life planning movement has failed. I didn't do the work I wanted to do. I was meant to do. I wanted to make things all right. I wanted to make a really flourishing world. And it struck me, and has always struck me, that it's time for that to occur. So when the banking crisis occurred, I went back to the books, so to speak. I said, nope, you're not getting off and going and finishing your poetry and all that. You got to write one more book of economics. And you've got to really put on the old economic thinking hat. I minored in economics at Harvard, and rethink how we think about economics, so that in fact that kind of situation just wouldn't happen, and so that we would have a civilization that we would always and constantly be proud of, be thrilled with, be feel that it was just incredible that all the world's people were coming alive with with great spirit and energy and connectedness. And how would that happen using all the great things that we've learned in our market system, in capitalism, and since the Industrial Revolution. So anyway, I put that thinking cap back on, and spent almost a decade, certainly many years, kind of writing and rewriting, and several books came out of it. Another book in the life planning field, but the book that I created was a vision of how we could create a sustainable, organic civilization that would be fair and thrilling for everybody, for not a generation or two, not 100 or 200 years, but for the rest of the life of humanity, basically for thousands of years. That's what I really wanted to do. And I feel it's time to do it. And you can see with the crises, with the planet burning up, with democracy and all these other things that we're frightened about. And you can see one of the amazing things that I've read, just a little statistic, you may know it already, but did you know that 90% of humanity right now has one of these things in their pocket?
Wow, 90 already.
90% has a smartphone. And that means that all these people all over the world have access to not only travel and weather information and maps and all that kind of stuff, but access to health information,
Yeah.
access to the greatest books that have ever been written, the greatest thinking that's ever been done, to the greatest art that's ever been done, to the greatest music that's ever been accomplished. All of that in their pockets, everybody.
Yeah.
what if this device shared only the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Wouldn't we be able, as a democracy, which is one of the great things
Yeah.
that we've also invented, wouldn't we be able to make the right decisions if we had all that information right there? We'd read it and think ourselves and come up with what we think is right. And so anyway, I've wandered a bit away, but the golden civilization is something that would be sustainable and doable. And that's what my book, A Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness, is all about.